All right. Well, welcome, Jeff, and also welcome to everyone who is joining us. Good morning, afternoon, or evening, whichever time zone you're calling us from. I'd like to thank you for joining. My name is Rebecca Cronin, and I'm one of the Customer Success Managers here with the Altair Data Analytics team. The Customer Success team, we're here as another point of contact for you to reach out to at any time with any questions or concerns you may have regarding Altair solutions, and if you're unable to get a hold of your account manager. Again, we're very excited for you joining us today for our AI Studio AI Hub webinar series. We created this time slot where you can come in, drop in, and we'll do our very best to provide assistance in answering any and all of the questions after demonstrating our starting topic. So within the session, we'll get started. Just want to do a little housekeeping for those that are joining us possibly for the first time. You should have a control panel, and in that control panel, you'll actually can see a handout section. It's a copy of today's PowerPoint that you may download for reference. You should also have a questions panel or perhaps a chat where you can submit your questions. Now note, they do not need to be about our today's topic. It could be anything related, AI Studio or AI Hub. And please feel free to forward, I think there's a link that you could forward to other colleagues that you feel may benefit. So again, we'll do our very best to get to your questions today, and should we run out of time, we will follow up with you directly, allow us about 2 to 5 business days to get back to you. So with no further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our expert, Jeff Chowaniec, who you heard introduced this morning. He's worked for almost 10 years in various technical support roles with our Altair RapidMiner. He's actually one of our original specialists from the team, and so we're very fortunate to have his expertise. Jeff leads by example, providing tremendous assistance to both our customers and our own internal teams. Some of you might even have the benefit of working with Jeff directly. So with no further ado, I'm going to hand over the role to Jeff, where we're going to dive into our topic regarding joining data sets by date time. So let me just make Jeff the presenter. And we'll dive right in.
All
right, Jeff. Awesome. I see your AI Studio.
You see my AI Studio? Perfect. Okay, so today, selected by a crowd of my peers on the last call, we decided to discuss how to join data sets based on their date in RapidMiner. Now, you might say, hey, a join operator is probably how you solve this. And you'll see it here in my local demos folder. I got a bunch of stuff that I show off. In here on our technical calls, internal technical calls, we usually play a game called Name That Operator, which is usually someone comes to the call and says, hey, I don't know how to do this. Name the operator I need to solve this problem. Fun part about this is there's not an operator for doing this. You might say to yourself, oh, if we're just joining 2 data sets together, we probably just need a join operator. And I would say you're right most of the time. However, I've got 2 example sets here that I want to talk about, and I've got another example I'm going to show as well. So this topic has been coming up a lot lately, especially in the machine sensor manufacturing world of things, where I want to collect data, and that data might come in at different intervals, whether it's one is seconds, the other is milliseconds, or I've got something in my example that's coming in every other second and every 3 seconds in another data set. Now, there are multiple ways I could join this data set together. And if I just stick with the regular join and just say, okay, join timestamp to timestamp, and grab my join operator and say, hey, do a left and right. And I'm just going to say, hey, join these by timestamp, for example. If I do this, I think my left data set is the second. Oh, I need to keep both join attributes so we can see both. So if I run this, you'll see I've got my every other second here. I've got the value for that data set here, and I've got I don't know why value. What if I just rename this? That'll probably work better. Value 3. And I'm going to call this one value 2 so they don't get deleted. Hit apply, run this, and you should see value. This worked like yesterday when I made sure everything worked. Hilarious. So we got timestamp 2 here. I've got value 2 from those evens. From my every 3-second data set, you'll see I join on 6, 12, 18 with the common problem of I'm missing 9 and 15 in here, and 3 isn't joining. So I'm missing a lot of data, right? And this works the same way too if we were to maybe do, let's do like a generate attributes. So right here I'm using just seconds, but maybe I want to say timestamp, and I'm doing this because I like to show off a whole bunch of operators that I can use. Timestamp, multiply it by 1,000. This will be relevant later. Mostly because we treat our time in milliseconds when we do any sort of conversions. I'm going to be doing numerical to date and simply say, hey, take our timestamp and turn that into a date. But what we'll also need to do is I'm going to adjust that date as well so it makes a little bit more sense. And I'm going to say take timestamp and adjust it by, I want to do 55 years, but maybe that's too many. Let's find out. So if I run this, I should now have, perfect. I should now have a timestamp. It's a little bit ahead in the future because it's December 31st, 2024. So it was a year off. I'm just going to adjust that by 54 years. Since this is epoch time and computer scientists decide that time started on the year January 1st, 1970, that's why this is the way it is. And I'm on West Coast time, so it's January 1st at midnight on East Coast time, so that's why mine is a little bit behind. But if I throw the same date adjustment on there, you'll notice that I get the same problem. I still join on those exact timestamps, right? So here's my 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 seconds, etc. And I've joined value 2, so you can see it for 6, 12, and 18. It's made that join. So it's not just if I'm joining there. So the way I deal with these different timestamps and actually bringing these data sets together requires just a little bit of extra setup. We can ignore this, and I'll show you how to move these into a subprocess as well, because this is just turning the data I created into a date because I didn't want to type in the dates, and I just wanted to use operators to turn those integers into dates. So ignoring these, and I'll just do a really quick ignore me, and then this is ignore me too. So the real change here is now that I have these as both timestamps, and actually what I want to do is do a breakpoint before here, I run into this data set here where I've got dates and they're not coming in at the same interval in terms of time, and I just want to have one data set that merges them all together in a really fancy way. So the operator that we're going to lean on heavily today is equalize timestamps. It should be ET. It is. Equalize timestamps. This is a really useful operator. I use it for a lot of things. This just happens to be one of them that allows me to make this join in RapidMiner without having to like write stuff to SQL tables and do a join in there. So if I drop this equalize timestamps in, what it allows me to do, I'm going to disable this one for now because I'm going to copy and paste the one from up above. In here, I can select timestamp and I can say equalize method. So we can specify a number of examples I want to create, a start value and a step size. For our case, I just want to do range, start, stop, and step size. So what this means is I will start the data at its original date. I will stop the data at its original end value. And I'm going to fill in all the data points in between at this given step size. So right now it's set to time in hours, but I just want to have this for every second. So what this is going to do is it's going to fill in every second between the start of this data and the end of this data set. So if I run this, what we will get at that breakpoint, when I come in here, you'll see I have every second in between. So now here's my odd second. So as soon as this odd second shows up, the 3, the 9, the 15, I now know that I can make the join and bring those values in. So when I run this, I should see value 3 brought in. But what you'll notice is now I have to deal with these missing values. So I've got missing values in here. But what I also filled in is I'm using the previous value. So for example, this 3 second here that gets put in before 2 and 4, which I have data points for, I have the default set to fill in that missing value right here with the start value, or not start value, with, I'm going to delete this help window. It's more helpful to me if it's gone. I have this replace type numerical here set to previous value. I could switch this and say, hey, use the next value, use the average, or I could easily do a linear interpretation. So if I rerun this now, you'll see I'll go with a linear interpretation between the 2 points. So if this is 234 and this is 245, halfway between is going to get me 293.5, which looks good. I could do this, I could use the previous value, etc. Now, if I resume this, I still end up with, even though I've done a linear interpretation here, I still have these missing data points. So I need to decide what I want to do on the value 3 side as well. So if I come over and take this equalize timestamps, I could easily actually, well, what I'm going to do is disable and enable it down below, because I could fill this in for every second. I could have a linear interpretation. So when I run this now, I have done the same exact thing, but to my 3 second data set. So it does my nice little linear interpretation from point to point. And if I resume this, it'll actually join with all the matching dates. So this, I still have some missings here because I'm doing the range start stop. What I could do is extract out the start of this data set as a macro and the end of this data set as a macro and put that in as the range start and stop value if I wanted to be really fancy. But here you can see now I have the original data set that's in every 2 seconds with the interpolated and real data for the every 3 seconds data set. So I could use the previous values or the linear interpolation in order to join these 2 data sets together. Now, the main issue I'm trying to bring up is I've got sensors or date timestamps coming in at different intervals. So from a like signal processing perspective, this is how we can join those, especially if I've got stuff that's coming in like a tenth of every second and my data set's really resolving in every millisecond. I need to bring those data points in without creating all those missing values we saw in that join. Now, that's kind of on just like the signal processing side. Let's take a different example. And so I've got an Excel file that has basically 2 different data sets, but it's much the same idea. I have per person, which is this ID over here. I have a response date and the campaigns that I'm running. And then on my example set side, I've got something similar. So per person, I've got a bunch of keywords based on accreditation that they've added to like their LinkedIn profile. And I want to match these activity dates to the classes that we teach. So I want to basically get them to know where they got these qualifications from. Now, it's not a perfect match. As you can see, I've got activity date here, which gives me down to the day or maybe hour. And so I need to get this activity to match with this class list, basically. So if I come into my design view, I can do the same setup where I just say, hey, join this do the same thing. I want to go to left. I can hit this and select my activity date, my response date, and then I'm also going to add my ID here as well. So if I run this, now I don't get any matches because these dates don't necessarily overlap with one another, which is not very helpful to me. So I don't get any matches because the time in which they're adding these keywords to their profile aren't matching the exact date time that's on my list. So what I can do is leverage that same equalize timestamps, but I'm actually going to do a couple of things. One, I'm going to remove. I want to remove duplicates here because I just want my class list on the dates that they're given. So I'm going to say response date. Give me a breakpoint after this. So I should just have the dates when I deliver the respective classes. And then I simply want to run that same equalize timestamps. So now I can come in, I can say, hey, take my response date. What you'll notice is I don't have a day options, but I can just leave it on hours. And in this case, I can just do every 24 hours. And then my previous value, I'm just going to input the previous value. So then my end result would look a little something like this. I need to throw in a sort operator as well because those aren't in order. Thank you, error message, for being helpful. And then I can say response date ascending perfect. And then when I run this, I need to change this to range start, stop, and step size. So when I run this, I should now have my campaigns. So every day, I just have the previous value in. So I can say, hey, every day after this is that campaign until this. I could get a little bit more creative with this replace. Like I could do this equalize timestamps a couple of times and say like, hey, there's an overlapping range for the two, etc. And I could get as fancy as I need to. But the nice part about this is as long as I equalize this one data set and run it, now all of a sudden I've got campaigns that are joining per person. I think I got rid of the need for ID in this one, so I need to drop this. And when I make this join, there we go. So now I have an associated campaign. It should be class, but I've got an associated campaign for when these got added to their accounts. So this is an example of like maybe I'm working with a churn data set or something where I'm looking at customer data and I want to basically say, hey, they attended this event and I wanted to note all the stuff that they have listed in their account after it to this event. This is how I can do that in RapidMiner. So that equalized timestamps works great, not just on signal data that's coming in from a sensor on a machine, but also just with date data I might be collecting from social media, or if I'm working with my marketing team and they've got campaign events that they run and we've got events or transactions in our data set that we want to attribute to those marketing events, I can make that join here with the help of that equalize timestamps operator. Like I said, I can't remember when, it was a long time ago, but I had come to our technical call and saying like, hey, I got to make this join. I created these data sets down below for that specific purpose. And then I learned all about the equalize timestamps operator, and now I use it pretty regularly. The operator is actually in the folder with equalize timestamps. If we go here, way back in the day, a lot of these, you'll notice that they're in the time series folder under modeling. This time series folder used to just be a separate extension we would make everyone install, and then these operators eventually got added to the base of RapidMiner, but there's a bunch of useful ones I use in here. And I think I touched on this when we talked about kind of structuring time series data for standard machine learning. And this was a few a few months ago, a few webinars ago. We covered that. So like you'll find the process windows operator in this time series folder, along with some of the other operators I used. Maybe it's not in, maybe it's in feature, yeah, like extract aggregates. But some of the other ones are like differentiate, exponential smoothing, the fast Fourier transform I covered on that call as well. So a lot of these are just in this time series folder, which is super handy. But this is I think I've had a customer that I've worked with for a long time say, I need to give like how to properly misuse operators, and equalize timestamps is helpful for this very reason. It's not like I'm misusing this operator, but it's like you need to bundle the equalize timestamps with the join operator as kind of like a date join building block, right? So I could say like, hey, this is my date join operator. I could save this as a building block and then pipe this in. If you're really fancy and want to create your own date join, you could also use the custom operators extension. So you could turn this into an operator you can just load as an extra operator, and that way it's just like, hey, deliver 2 inputs and tell me what the timestamps need to be equalized to, for example. So you can get really creative with this. But this equalize timestamps solves this date join problem. Like I said, whether it's the sensor data coming in at odd intervals, or I want to join events in one data set to events happening after in the other, like this example with classes and added keywords to a customer's account. So I can attribute these additions or events to this campaign or class or whatever event our marketing team has delivered. So this is just a common problem that shows up is, hey, joins work great when I have integers or strings to join things to, but what happens when I have to join dates, which is not a straightforward join, right? Like if I need to find something within a day of this event happening, I need to leverage this equalize timestamps in order to help me find a date time in which I can join 2 data sets together. And that's exactly what we did with this activity date. We basically said, hey, this class has a range of which there are events in our customer information that we want to attribute to it. So if we extend this class to days after it happens, then we can easily match those 2 columns together with activity date. Like I said, I wanted to cover this because this has been coming up a lot lately. It's a helpful operator to know how to use. I probably could spend a whole hour setting up cool processes with it. But generally, I leverage this equalize timestamps for making joins, like the 2 examples I showed today. So with that, I can hand it over to some questions that you guys have.
And again, if you don't have a question around what Jeff has just shared, it could be any other operator function within AI Studio that you think might be helpful or that you might be struggling with. Well, if folks are still trying to think of something to ask, while I do have your attention and we have a majority here, I'd like to go ahead and launch our poll question so we can come up with the next topic for January. So this is going to pop up on your screen. If you had your screen in full open Zoom, you'll actually have to minimize to select your option. So select what is more important for you to review, one of these items. So we have model optimization, hyperparameter tuning. We have feature selection options. We have macros masterclass. And then if you select other, we do have a closing survey once the webinar ends that you'll receive. And it gives you an opportunity to have a free text where you can submit another idea, and we'll get that onto our poll board for the following session. So we could see we're a third of the way there. So please make a selection of what's really important you'd like to kind of cover and learn about. for January after the new year. And we'll do a countdown. We got 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And so it looks like the popular vote was the macros masterclass. All right, so back to Jeff. So has anyone thought of a question they'd like to submit or ask? And again, it doesn't have to be about today's topic. It could even be about our AI Hub product.
So one question I might get, or I usually get on these, is this the data you have shareable? Totally. Mostly because I made it up myself. So one of the operators I'm leveraging at the beginning, so for the first example, is just the create example set operator, which is helpful. I usually use this a lot for testing. So like if I need to make like a generate attributes function or something, and I want to troubleshoot on not a whole data set, but just want to create a couple of examples and see if I can break it or get it to work. I think both of those are equally as valid because sometimes I want to generate scenarios that might break my function versus validate it. But the create example set has a couple of options for just generating data. The one I use the most is just the comma separated text, which just allow me to write out a CSV file. So that's all I did here, which is a timestamp, comma, value 2, and then I put the timestamp in the left and the value on the right. So that's what I did to create this data set. This is a really useful trick. Like I said, if I need to generate some function with generate attributes and I've got a huge data set, I don't want to like pipe through the function because it'll take too long. I could generate some data set and write some function here and then put a whole bunch of nested if statements or something to see if it works. And throw those in there and run it. So I can just create a really quick, crude example set to test whatever it is I need to build, and then let that do its thing. So this create example set's pretty useful for that, and that's what I used for the first example. The other data set, I think I just grabbed, I stored as just an Excel file for my example, but I think I did either use the create example set or just wrote a CSV file myself. Because it looks eerily similar to the outputs of these create example sets. So I forgot when I created this file, but I'm fairly certain I created it with the create example set up. And I probably used the what's in here to turn it into a date as well, funnily enough. But yeah, this create example set operator is great. If you just need to generate some like really simple test data, I really like using this comma separated text option and just writing out data. So that's a bonus tips and tricks for today. Which means if you want more, you have to ask questions. I'm kidding. I can think of other tips and tricks as well.
Folks are still trying to think of questions. Again, we got that question control panel. Let me go ahead and share my screen. So for those that did not get a chance to download the PowerPoint, if you do so, you'll see it contains a list of helpful web links. So our community support, again, if you haven't attended, we did an update where it's a migration of the old RapidMiner with our Altair resource. So we have that support portal there. Again, the community is now a joined effort. Just make sure you want to use AI Studio or AI Hub, predictive analytics, kind of key terms in your searching when you're doing looking for information. The documentation, that link does and still has remained the same. Our RapidMiner Academy, always great resource to further enable your skill set. These Ask the Expert sessions, right? We're here for you. We got a full hour dedicated, so please try to come with some questions that we can help out with. You know, again, doesn't have to be about what we discussed today. It's anything and all AI Studio and AI Hub. If you haven't completed certification, please take advantage and leverage that offering. And in the customer success, we do have a team mailbox that you can reach out to if you're not sure where to locate various resources. So this is that new look and feel of the support portal. So right here, you can come in and create your support ticket. Our user community, you have the documentation area. Search for Altair, or I should say AI Studio. You can then select the documents. That look and feel of Academy is still the same. If you were to go to Learn, we actually do have some resources in our learning website. These are similar to the AI Academy, but if you wanted to leverage this platform, you have that ability as well. Marketplace, that's where you'll grab the latest AI Studio client. And then our upcoming events, what we do have, again, we'll start this back up again next year. Continue to be that second Wednesday of the month. So January 8th, and we'll start with that topic that you voted with the macros masterclass. The registration page, so I'll try to see if I can get it ready by this Friday, but most likely it'll probably be just before our Christmas Eve. So I know Altair's offices will be closed pretty much from that Christmas Eve until January 2nd when we return back. Though support will be available. So this is all I have for my slides here. So I want to give this back to Jeff, because again, we do have a solid 25 minutes to address your questions and concerns.
All right, looks like we have a pretty, either I explained things so perfectly that I solved all of their problems, or we have a pretty shy bunch. Either option is absolutely okay. I can't think of off the top of my head anything to show, and I'm really happy that our next session is going to be the macros masterclass, because this is a section that's near and dear to my heart. So I figure since we're not getting much questions, we can give a little bit of time back to everyone on the call today. And just wrap this one up early. If you do have any follow-up questions, you can always reach out to us as well. So if we get off the call and you think to yourself, oh wait, I needed an answer to this, feel free to reach out as well.
All right. Well, Jeff, thank you so much for today. Everyone, thank you for joining us. As Jeff said, this will be an early session today. So we won't be seeing you until after the new year. So please have a wonderful holiday, and we'll see you then. Thank you.
Yep. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.